Happy Tuesday and welcome to Midday with Dana. I'm your host, Dana Carney. I'm happy to be back here at RVN. I actually wanted to start off with something a little different this time. I did want to mention to anyone watching, the viewers, that I did have, unfortunately, a miscarriage recently. It was in the second trimester. It was really upsetting for myself and my family. So I've been out for a little bit, but I'm back. I always say struggle does not have a look, and it's so important to talk about the problems that we face and losses and the grief that we go through in life, because unfortunately loss is inevitable and it varies from person to person and family to family. But I guess it's a little segue into today's show because it's so important, again, to talk about the problems that we face. And I have Dr. Alan Wegg with me from Stress and Anxiety Services in New Jersey. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Dana. Good to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. So tell me a little bit about the business.
First of all, again, my condolences.
Thank you.
And I think it's wonderful that you're so incredibly public about this and that's your theme. So Stress and Anxiety Services in New Jersey is an independent practice, private practice, where 10 psychologists and clinical social workers in Florham Park, New Jersey, which is in Morris County, and also in East Brunswick. And we're really a very specialized group. We're not just a collection of therapists. We really focus on doing certain kinds of therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and other what we call evidence-based therapies, which are basically scientific proven interventions. And the focus of our problems that we address is also very specific, and they're anxiety disorders. So OCD and what we call OCD spectrum disorders and post-traumatic stress disorder, and the other anxiety disorders like social anxiety, which is extreme shyness, phobias, panic disorder, those kinds of things. We really don't do a whole lot of work with much else. That really is, we want to be the go-to place for these kinds of problems because they really require some very, very specialized kind of work. So.
It's good to know that you don't work on such a broad spectrum of disorders. You specialize in a select few. And yourself, you specialize in OCD and social anxiety.
Yeah, those are the two areas that I do a lot of work with. I do panic disorder too. I myself don't do a whole lot of post-traumatic stress disorder, but that was really included because those are usually, they're all anxiety-focused problems, and so we really like to address them as a group, and that's what we do. But certain people do have more experience doing other things, and my thing is really the OCD and social anxiety.
So how long have you had the practice?
Well, it's been a growing practice. I mean, it was just
Sounds
me.
Huge now. 10 psychologists?
And growing.
Wow.
It was originally it was just me for years, and then there were 4 of us, and we were hanging around for a few years. And then this sort of organic thing just started happening, and this person said, I heard about you, I want to join you, and she knew somebody, and she brought somebody in, and it just kind of took off. And so now we don't really have enough offices we've had to turn 2 people away. Who were interested in working, really great people who were really interested in working with us because...
It's kind of a good problem to have.
It is, it is. We also have a problem of not having enough people to see the people that are waiting to see us.
Right.
So it's on both ends. But the infrastructure just hasn't gotten big enough fast enough, which again is a good problem to have, I guess.
What made you choose to become a psychologist? I love asking these questions because usually it's probably a little bit reversed.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, people always say, ask that question, and I think most of the time, it's more than just I want to help people.
Okay.
I want to I want a job where I can talk to people because everybody kind of says that about all jobs that they want. I think that as an adolescent, I had a tough time. I was never suicidal or anything like that, but I was kind of depressed. And I struggled with some stuff.
What did you do for that?
At the time?
Yeah.
Not much. I didn't know what to do, I guess is really what it was. I didn't go to therapy or anything like that.
So you had, I guess, a resilience, probably.
I guess eventually that was the truth.
Yeah.
I had some really good friends.
Okay.
And that really helped.
It's important to have a support system.
Yes, it's really important to have
And then
a
if you
support
don't,
system.
I think it's important to have someone or be that someone to a person, but also to seek therapy if you truly need it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that would happen in college is that people would always seek me out when they had difficulties, and they would.
So you're that go-to.
They would
you
say.
You would have been my best friend.
They would just say, it's really easy to talk with you, that sort of thing, and I'm like, oh, okay. I guess.
Yeah, so you sort of, wow, that's a trend.
But when I worked at a mental health center,
Okay.
a clinic for about 14 years before I went out on my own, and I identified myself as a cognitive behavioral therapist at the time, which basically means it's not traditional talk therapy. I really function more as a coach or as an instructor, a teacher.
Okay.
We call it psychoeducational. And so it isn't like you come to therapy and each week you just talk about whatever, and the therapist kind of sits back and you kind of look at your relationship and you address unconscious issues and you do dream analysis and you look at your early life experiences with your parents and what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say this word, or look at the ink blot. We don't do any of that stuff. This is really, you have a problem, you're over here, you want to go over here, let's talk about how we're going to get from here to here.
So you really don't dive too much into the past?
Unless it's very relevant to the future,
Okay.
to the present.
That's good to know. I mean, I'm, again, open. I have been to therapists in the past from emotional trauma, and I know that it's always been what happened then, what happened before that, what happened, and it's just same
Well, with
thing
trauma,
over and
again,
over
it's a little bit different.
Yes.
You're focusing on the trauma.
Right, right.
But you wouldn't necessarily focus on what happened
When you were 5 years
when
old.
you were 5 years
Yeah,
old,
right.
if the trauma happened when you were
Right.
a teenager.
Uh-huh.
So, this really focuses on things to do, tools to learn. We call it even tools that you put in your toolbox. And in the same way that when you have a real toolbox, the more tools you have, the more ready you are to deal with whatever comes your way in terms of problems. We do the same kind of thing. And because of that, homework is a very big piece of what we do. And so this person comes in, and one of the first things I usually ask them if I've been seeing them regularly is, you have any questions for me about anything? Has anything important happened in the last week or since the last session that you want to share with me? And the next question always will tell me about the homework. Like, what did you do?
So what is the homework? Like, can you give an example?
Well,
Like an OCD disorder.
so for instance, an obsessive compulsive disorder, the theme of a lot of these anxiety difficulties is ultimately about facing fears.
Okay.
And the main theme, when I say that, I always like to say a couple of the things first right away, and that is, it's not about forcing people to do things they don't want to do. It's about showing them what they need to do if they want to get better by challenging themselves and facing their fears. Mm-hmm. So it's never about forcing or tricking or manipulating or pushing too hard. And the other thing is the art of the therapy is really learning how to break down the steps of what we call exposure therapy.
Okay.
I'm exposing myself to the
Yes.
things that I'm afraid of into small pieces, into levels. So it's sort of like going to the gym. If you want to bench press 200 pounds, you don't just go in and do that.
Right.
You start at whatever level you're able to do, and you add on a few pounds over the weeks, and you build your strength, and then you add on a few more pounds, and you build your strength. This is very much the same kind of thing.
You put that in such a good way. I mean, I'm now realizing it's like it's coaching.
It is. It's coaching.
Yeah.
In fact, I tell people when I'm in therapy with you, when we're in therapy together, it's like we're in a car ride, but you're behind the wheel, so you decide which direction we're going. You have your feet on the gas and the brake. I'm just the GPS. I'm the guy with the information and the maps. Mm-hmm. I'm also like a cheerleader.
And you can choose to follow it you should be choosing to follow it, like the GPS, but it's
Well,
up to the
yeah, I
person
mean,
choosing to follow it, yeah.
sometimes people, if I make a suggestion and they're really uncomfortable with, let's say, doing some kind of challenge, then usually my response is, okay, if you can't do that, let's talk about what you can do.
Okay.
And so it's always about, well, let's reel it back a little bit and see where you're at. So it's always about meeting the client. And we call them, I tend to call them clients as opposed to patients.
Of course.
Because I think that it's a more equivalent kind of
Absolutely.
feel to it. The other thing is about CBT is that it's relatively short term. People come to us after being with other therapists for many, many years, sometimes several times a week, and they still have the problem. They may really love the therapist was really great, and he or she really understood, but
there's
the
no
problem
help.
is still there.
Yeah, correct.
So, we basically tell people that it really is just a few months of once-a-week therapy before at least you'll really understand what the skills are that you need to really master in order to get where you want to go. You might not be ready to end in 3 months, but the basic message is it's not a 2-3 session fix most of the time, but it also isn't 3 or 4 years kind of thing.
I have so many questions that are going through my head, but we have to take a quick commercial break, and then I'm going to ask all of them.
Sure, all
I'll
of
be
them.
right
Okay.
back.
When did you see the sign?
When I needed to jumpstart sales. Build attendance for an event.
Help people find their way. Fast Signs design new directional signage.
And got them back on track. Get started at fastsigns.com.
I'm Casey Price, host of a brand new show on RVN TV called Justice for All. Tune in every Tuesday at 1 p.m. as some of South Jersey's amazing attorneys share their stories and important legal information that could affect you and the people you love. Remember, that's Injustice for All, every Tuesday at 1 p.m. only on RVN TV.
Is your business growing and now you need a new and bigger building? Has your organization outgrown their facility and now it's time to expand? Do your hobbies require the need for more space? If you're paying rent, but now you want the advantages of owning, the prospect of financing, construction, and on-time completion may seem out of your reach. General Steel Corporation has the answer. A pre-engineered steel building from the General will not only look great and satisfy almost any need, but you'll save time and money. Our team will help you create your building and deliver it to your location. We offer design services to help you present your concept to board members, bankers, or for fundraising. And the General can even help with financing. General Steel is a name you know, with quality backed by a 50-year structural warranty. Call today and find out how easy it is to have the building you want. You may even save up to $20,000 with rebates. If you need space, you need the General.
Welcome back to Midday with Dana. I'm your host, Dana Carney, here with Dr. Alan Waig of Stress and Anxiety Services in New Jersey. We've been having so much fun, and you've been so informative already.
Thank you.
But you know what's interesting? I never asked the question, what is OCD? What really is it?
All right, well, I mean, if you think of what the words are, obsessive compulsive disorder, it's people who have obsessions, which are intrusive thoughts, which could be anything. Did I lock the door correctly? Is that thing dirty? Am I gay? Might I hurt somebody with my car or with a knife? It's any strange thought that might enter your mind that creates anxiety.
Now, are there multiple, when someone has this, faces this problem, are there multiple obsessions? Or are there just usually just one at a time?
There's usually multiple.
Okay.
And they usually, we kind of artificially categorize them.
Okay.
There's the checkers, the people who end up checking because they think that they left something or that something's wrong.
Checkers.
Or the washers, which is, these are the compulsions. So an obsession is an intrusive thought, an idea that makes you anxious. It just happens to you. And the compulsion is the thing that you do on purpose because you're trying to neutralize the anxiety. You're trying to calm yourself down. So if I touch something and I think it's contaminated, and that's the word we use, so the contamination idea just enters my mind. But then I say, well, this is no good, and so I'm going to go wash my hands, and that's the compulsion.
Got it.
And if I think I forgot something, I go back and I check, that's the compulsion. If I have it in my mind that maybe I'll just sort of lose control and go temporarily insane and take a knife and stab everybody that I love near me, then I'm going to avoid the kitchen because that's where the knives are. Yeah. That's the compulsion. Sometimes the compulsion is the avoidance of behaviors.
Okay.
And so, people usually think about OCD as, the people who wash a lot in their hands or check a lot. But it really is many, many different flavors, we call them. Sometimes even like identity OCD, where I'm afraid that we get this with kids sometimes, if I go in to school, if I see a particular person, I might turn into them or become like them.
Really?
A very common one is what we call a metaphobia, where there's a fear that I'm going to vomit. And so there's sometimes an avoidance of all kinds of foods.
And that could probably turn right into a panic attack, right?
Well, panic attacks are just extreme forms of anxiety, and that can happen within any kind of anxiety problem. Panic disorder is when I have a fear. My major fear is of getting panic attacks. So if I'm afraid that I'm just going to get a panic attack, that's called panic disorder. If I get panic attacks because I'm afraid that I touch something and I'm contaminated, that's still OCD.
Still OCD, okay.
It's a little complicated.
Yeah. No, I mean, not that I'm trying to diagnose my daughter, but I was trying to figure out this, like OCD mixed in with separation anxiety. She has to kiss me like 50 times a day. And obviously, I think I told you before that, like on the phone yesterday, that, I have her 60% of the time, and then she goes with her dad the other 40%, and she has to kiss me, and she'll always say, I want to kiss you for 60 minutes. But I also think maybe it's separation,
Well, one of the things that have been sort of a success but a failure in the OCD community is, 30 years ago, nobody knew anything about OCD.
Right.
Now the problem is everybody thinks they know everything about OCD, and they really don't. So you have, adolescents all the time, or college kids going, oh, I'm being so OCD today. Well,
I do hear that all the time,
you do. But, that's very insulting that people have OCD, because this is a very, very serious problem.
Sure.
In the same way that you can feel depressed one day, that doesn't mean you have clinical depression.
Correct.
So these are people who, when we talk about obsessive compulsive disorder, pretty much everybody is obsessive compulsive to some degree. Anybody who's really successful,
Yes.
has a certain degree of drive, they're somewhat obsessive compulsive. But the
Obsessive
disorder
with-
is the piece
yeah.
thing, is the main
Okay.
thing. You know, if it's not working for you, if it's causing problems for you, then you have OCD. If it really isn't, it's just you're a little quirky or you're whatever, then that's not a psychiatric disorder. That's
Correct.
just you being you, and maybe it even works for you.
I like what you also brought up about the depression aspect, because it is insulting when I think when people say I'm so depressed today, and they don't know what it's truly like to have that. I mean, I've never been diagnosed with clinical depression, but there have been isolated issues of time where like last week,
Absolutely.
I go through an issue, but I've never
And that's
been
very
diagnosed
much
with
like
it.
what we call a reactive depression,
Okay.
because it's in reaction to something that very clearly most
Right.
people would have that kind of emotional response to.
Correct.
We do deal with depression as well because, when you have some of these problems, it's kind of depressing. And so you can experience depression as well as OCD, and we kind of work with both of those things. So, you had asked a little bit about, the homework. So,
Yes,
I wanted to
yes.
get back to that because that's such an integral part of what it is that we do. So this is really about, a lot of this is really, when we talk about coaching and within the context of therapy, it's really about letting people know that we really believe that they can do this. It's really about being a true coach and cheerleader for this person. And so, we give them these assignments. It's really collaborative. Like it isn't, for the kids especially, I'll say, I'm going to give you homework, but it isn't like high school where I just give you homework. It's like I'm going to talk with you about this, and you let me know whether this is something that you're going to be okay doing, kind of thing. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, and if they're not, we make adjustments. But for instance, if let's say there's a chair at home that they can't sit on because it's contaminated because Uncle Joey, who they thought was contaminated because of something that he did, sat on it one time. So they can't sit on that chair anymore.
Right.
So, the idea is, well, you want to practice sitting on the chair, but if you can't sit on the
Is it a form
chair,
of exposure?
that's the exposure therapy. So, and we practice X number of, minutes a day, sitting on the chair. But if the person says, well, I can't sit on the chair, it's too anxiety-provoking for me, then we find ways of breaking it down. So sometimes it's just, touching the chair with your hand and then, touching other things with the hands that feel contaminated now. Or if, the seat in the back where the person's body contact is, feels too contaminated, then what about the back of the chair or the legs of the chair or the floor that the chair is under? And if it's really, really hard, then just the air around the chair. We start with wherever the person is, and then we move forward from there. And the idea basically is, when you do this repeatedly over and over again as part of the behavioral homework, typically the person, either the anxiety really goes down, you get used to it the way that you would with most people, most things that you're anxious about when you first get started doing it, and you're not real familiar with it, or you kind of just get accustomed to the anxiety, it doesn't really bother you so much. And then you're ready to go to the next step, that idea of, again, going to the gym and adding more weights to the barbells. And people go at their own pace. Usually once they kind of realize, going towards the very thing that I want to end, which sounds counterintuitive, it's weird, that works, they get really excited and they go, okay, and they dive into it. And, a lot of times it's really not very hard work for me because, they kind of go off on their own because they're so excited about what it is that they can do. And that's true with the other disorders as well. I mean, social anxiety disorder is a little different because the focus is on people. And just to define what that is, that really is, it isn't really just being shy, it's being shy to the point that you can't go to school, you can't go to work. I've worked with people who didn't accept promotions at work because that would mean being a manager and having to talk with people more, or giving up careers where there would be more performance. There was a girl who was really amazing, and it was about dancing, or another one who played an instrument, and they just, they couldn't do it. And so this is really about performance anxiety and being judged very negatively by people. And so a lot of these disorders, the kind of three-pronged approach is relaxation work. We kind of help them learn how to calm things down. What we call cognitive restructuring, which just means looking at what are you telling yourself about the situation that's scaring you. The idea is if I feel scared, this situation isn't scaring me. What I'm telling myself about that situation is really what's scaring me. And it's about learning how to identify that inner voice and then learning how to challenge that in some very specific ways and coming up with kind of an alternative script. But ultimately, the big guns really is about going and challenging your fear. Social anxiety is particularly challenging because other people are involved. So how do I practice interacting with people if there are other people. I mean, how do I control that? If it's a bridge, the bridge is there, and I can practice going over it, whenever I want to. But if it's people, it's different. So we do a lot of mall therapy, because malls are great, because you can keep going into one store, into another, and practice different kinds of things, whether it's just saying hello or making eye contact and smiling, or saying something about what the person is wearing, or sometimes it's even, the fear is I'm going to be judged like I'm weird, or that they don't like me, or that I'm strange. And so the goal actually is to act a little strange. So to walk into
we are all strange in our own
ways.
ways.
But the anxiety,
right.
I mean, a lot of the things that I have clients do, I want to make sure that I would be okay doing them, like walking backwards in a mall, or wearing a silly hat or a weird short shirt, or going into a store and saying, is the mall open tomorrow, Wednesday? And it's like, well, why wouldn't it be open tomorrow, Wednesday? And doing those kinds of strange behaviors as a way of kind of coming out of it and saying, so maybe that person in the store thinks I'm weird, so what?
Right.
That's not really something they need to be afraid of. And that becomes more than an intellectual experience, that becomes an experiential learning experience. And that's really where the change comes when it comes to fear.
Have you ever asked someone as far as homework to say to themselves, all right, you feel like you're weird, going out in public, you feel like you're weird. Ask yourself this, am I really weird? If the answer is no, then you're fine, right? Have you ever?
They're not really rational, a lot of the fears. And a lot of people will come in very often saying, I know this is crazy. I know this makes no sense. But it's still, and I relate to it because of my own stuff. So I've driven over on the West Coast Highway, and people said, go on the West Coast Highway, A1 or whatever it's called, and it's really beautiful vistas and stuff. But it's next to a cliff. You're 4 hours, you're driving along, and there's just these cliffs. And, I was driving north on it, so there's about 35, 40 feet before that you have these cliffs. And I was freaking out, and I'm thinking to myself, I drive in New Jersey all the time, in the middle lane where there's oncoming traffic in the opposite way, and there's just 2 yellow lines between me and that other person, and I know that I'm not going to lose control of the car and go over and hit them, yet the visual of the cliff somehow triggers my anxiety. So I know it's not logical, and I remember driving that highway and thinking, this makes no sense, and yet I'm really terrified.
I feel like we're so much alike, though. I have to say this. I didn't drive over the bridge to Philadelphia until I was 26 years old. But yet, 2 years prior to that, when I was 24, I was in Boston, and I forget which bridge it was, but I drove over a bridge perfectly fine. I think I was going to Cape Cod. And I was thinking, how am I able to do that? But then I had this fear until the age of 26, driving over bridges. One day I finally did it, and I love bridges. I conquered it.
The response that we typically give is, it doesn't matter.
Right.
That's the problem. Let's try to work on getting through it and getting beyond it. And of course, the lesson really is that we're greater than our fears. And so especially when you're working with kids and they learn to challenge their fears, they become anxiety management experts in ways that other kids are not. And so when they go for the interview, when they go to ask someone out on a date, when they have to do a presentation in school as they get older, they've learned how to deal with fear. They've had formal training in managing fear and anxiety in ways that other kids have not. So a lot of times when parents come in and they're really nervous about their kids, my kid's is not able to go to school or is not functioning, I will often say to them, not only do I expect, we don't give guarantees, but not only do I expect, because I really believe in the stuff that I utilize, that they'll get better, but in some ways, not that you'd wish this on anybody, but the fact that they go through this actually will enable them to be, even in some ways, better than they would have been had they never had the problem, because they learn how to not trust their own fears and to transcend them and challenge them. And that's a great gift.
Oh, I love that. We're going to take one more commercial break. When we get back, I want to learn more about the OCD of New Jersey. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
When did you see the sign?
When I needed to jumpstart sales. Build attendance for an event.
Help people find their way. Fast Signs design new directional signage.
And got them back on track. Get started at fastsigns.com.
Welcome to Live Better Longer, the show for baby boomers who want to improve and even extend their retirement years. I'm your host, Bill Borton. On Live Better Longer, our viewers meet and learn from a wide variety of experts and thought leaders who share their knowledge on subjects ranging from portfolio management to nutrition management, from insurance, Social Security, and reverse mortgages, to annuities, Medicare, and Roth IRA conversions. Not just thought-provoking and actionable information, but why it's important to you. Tune in every Tuesday at 11 on RVN TV for reliable and unbiased information from experts in their field who are committed to helping you live better longer.
Is your business growing and now you need a new and bigger building? Has your organization outgrown their facility and now it's time to expand? Do your hobbies require the need for more space? If you're paying rent, but now you want the advantages of owning, the prospect of financing, construction, and on-time completion may seem out of your reach. General Steel Corporation has the answer.
A pre-engineered steel building from the General will not only look great and satisfy almost any need, but you'll save time and money. Our team will help you create your building and deliver it to your location. We offer design services to help you present your concept to board members, bankers, or for fundraising. And the General can even help with financing.
General Steel is a name you know, with quality backed by a 50-year structural warranty. Call today and find out how easy it is to have the building you want.
You may even save up to $20,000 with rebates. If you need space, you need the General.
Welcome back. I'm Dana Carney here with Dr. Alan Wegg of Anxiety Services of New Jersey. You are the founder. Thank you again for joining me today. We've had the most amazing conversations. It's a great segment so far. But you are the president on the board of directors for the OCD of New Jersey.
That's correct.
Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
So there's an international organization called the International OCD Foundation. It's about 10,000 members.
Take a picture. We can pose. There we go. Right.
Oh, that's the OCD New Jersey.
Yes.
One of the things that we do is we're at health fairs sometimes to kind of advertise what this is. It's a nonprofit organization. It's all volunteer. And what we are, OCD New Jersey, is one of the affiliates of the International OCD Foundation. So there are about 22 affiliates all over the world. And a whole bunch of them are in the United States. And we have a website, ocdnj.org. Okay. We have quarterly presentations, usually in East Brunswick or here in Cherry Hill. We have an electronic newsletter that goes out. We have a big annual conference in March. And really what we're trying to do is just educate the general public about what OCD is, to provide some support. We don't run groups or do therapy, but we can direct people in the right directions. Mm-hmm. And several people on the staff of Stress and Anxiety Service in New Jersey, in my private practice, are also on the board as well. It's really our way of giving back because in my practice we don't take insurance, and so a lot of people can't come to see us. But this way we can support them in other ways, and most of the things that OCD New Jersey provides, like the quarterly meetings and the e-newsletters and all that stuff, is free of charge.
Mm-hmm. And you can connect people with the different resources that they need.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, when people call Stress and Anxiety Services, generally, if we can't treat them because of geography or finances, we usually will not say, well, sorry, but we'll try to find somebody or some other service that can help them out.
Right. So, Dr. Wegg, how can a client get in touch with you?
Oh, well, they would go to our website, which is stressandanxiety.com. I got that because it was the early 90s when everything was available.
I was wondering, to be honest with you, did you spend like $500,000 on that?
It was like nothing. And there's all the information about who we are and what we do. And our number is 732-390-6694. 732-390-6694. It's on the website. And they'll talk to one of the intake coordinators who takes it from there. Mm-hmm. And they help decide who would be best for them in terms of the specifics. Sometimes it's just scheduling. Sometimes I want someone older or younger. I want a female, I want a male kind of therapist. And so we try to accommodate as best we can regarding that.
Awesome information. And also, if you want to pay Dr. Wegg $1 million to buy his domain, please call him on that number.
When I did that, I remember looking and stress.com was available, anxiety.com was available. Anxiety and stress.com, the other way around. Everything was available, and I should have just bought it all. But
you'd be on an island somewhere. So.
But I have this one till the 2030 something.
Okay.
Like
I'm going to write that down. I'll take it from you. Just kidding. Thank you so much for tuning in to Midday with Dana. I'm your host again, Dana Carney, and I will see you this Thursday.